Welcome back to Uplink, the only show on the internet that misses 3 weeks in a row and doesn't tell you about it.
Yay, we're alive.
I'm here.
One of
He's
us
here.
is.
Everyone's fine. We're all good. A little bit of illness going around, but we're past it now. I'm
Are
back.
we?
Royden, don't curse us like that.
Okay.
Son of a man and a woman. But we're back. As always, I'm your host, Andrew Hamilton. This is my co-host, Royden Ogletree. We've got lots to talk about. We're going to skip a little bit of news that we missed out on. We just don't have time to cover everything. 3 weeks is a long time to be gone. But we are going to talk about the Microsoft-Sony stuff that's been going down. A lot of drama there, as per usual. You know, general merger nonsense, high school BS. You know, like you had in high school when you were in the middle of buying another company.
Yeah.
That thing we all went through.
When you were buying your friend's lemonade stand and saying nobody else could sell lemonade within the Tri-County area?
I swear over the next 5 semesters, everyone will have access to the lemonade. Everyone's like, what happens after that? Anyway, we'll get into it.
I would slowly push out the lemonade.
Lemonade is only available through Game Pass.
Yeah. What's Game Pass? Shut up.
Soon. We're going to talk about some WP stuff. We're going to talk about the James Bond game and what that means for the Hitman series. And then we're going to go over our very, very waterworky, in-depth notes on The Last of Us Season 1, what Season 2 is going to potentially look like, what we hope for, what we hope they don't do, and what we're hoping for out of the future video game adaptations that are now forced to follow that
formula
masterpiece arc that just happened, which is mostly just adapt the game. That thing we've always been saying.
You know, it seems simple, right?
Yeah, on paper it should be.
Let's talk about video games because I feel like we'll wax poetic about
for sure we'll wax poetic.
video game TV.
All right, and you know, make sure to like and subscribe if you like what we do and you want to see us more than once a month. That's the real reason I was sick.
Right?
Because you didn't subscribe, I got sick.
You got COVID.
All right, so yeah, let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
So, been lots of stuff going on with the Microsoft Activision Blizzard purchase, as we have talked about in the past, and insert number of videos that we've talked about here.
We will continue to talk about until the sun explodes.
It will never end, because they're always going to have a reason why you should trust them. And Sony's always going to have a reason why you should be definitely scared about this.
Right.
And you're both a little right, and you're both a little wrong. But so, you know, the UK has already been challenging this deal for a while now. We know the US is very finicky on whether or not they want to go forward with this. There's been a lawsuit, ongoing investigation into all this. Microsoft has decided that the best way to make this go away is by just signing imaginary deals with everyone. So they've signed a deal, a 10-year agreement to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo. How? I don't know.
Let me just say right here, yuck. It's not going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to be bad. Well, and so that was the main thing, is the UK. The CMA, and I think the FTC kind of said the same thing, maintains that they do not believe that there is a way to bring a on-par quality version of Call of Duty, which is what they said, to the Nintendo Switch or any Nintendo system for that matter, because Nintendo is notoriously bad about making underpowered systems. They care more about things that are fun and less about things that are pretty.
Warzone's going to take up all of the memory on one Switch.
Dude. There's already no memory on the Switch, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine trying to find 250 gigabytes on your Switch?
Exactly.
No thanks. I imagine that the solution there is going to end up being probably some kind of cloud gaming thing. But again, that's an imaginary deal, right?
Yeah.
Because they haven't been approved for this merger yet. This purchase hasn't gone through yet. So this is Microsoft making promises out in the open to be like, see, we play nice.
Microsoft writing checks, who would have thought?
And then that's what they did. So they've made 2 other deals to bring PC and potentially Xbox PC games and potentially other Activision Blizzard titles to a couple other platforms via cloud streaming companies. We've seen 2 of those deals in the last 2 days. That's all well and good, Microsoft. Feels like you're just trying to really butter everyone up to think that this
is how it's going to be. Yeah.
But I noticed that you always stop at 10 years out. And while that sounds like a long time, because it is, that is not guaranteed for ever. And that's all anyone's ever asked.
Maybe the world will end in 10 years.
they're
and this bill won't come due.
Yeah, they're like, maybe no one will ask questions. They're hoping to make a contract. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what they're hoping for. They're hoping to make a contract, from what I can tell. This is speculation. Obviously, legally, I have no expertise here. But my speculation is that they're trying to make a deal that's long enough that people would forget about the details of all this by the time we get there. So Call of Duty's always been on everything. For the last 10 years it has since Microsoft took over. Why would they stop? Oh, they changed it? They changed it on the 11th year? That's crazy. Yeah. And Sony basically said as much and pointed to the fact that Microsoft said before the purchase of Bethesda was approved that they would not make things like Elder Scrolls established franchises on the Bethesda side of things exclusive to Xbox. And then now they've kind of basically said Starfield and Elder Scrolls are just the start of exclusivity for Xbox.
Yeah, and PlayStation was upset about that. I do understand the criticism of PlayStation like pointing fingers in this direction because this is like two games. Like, you know, like they make PlayStation exclusives. So to point the finger and be like, these two games are already exclusive. Yeah. I know it's a smaller part of a much larger whole that they're just trying to like get in there. We're gonna slowly like leak this one out there to eventually expand. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't necessarily. And we've gone back and forth on this. But like, I don't think you can necessarily point the finger at just like two exclusive games and be like, see what they're doing.
No,
like,
that's why they brought.
Don't ignore that we made these games exclusive for our platform too. You know,
I think that, and we talked about this before, that the exclusivity thing, I think the conversation is different on both sides. Now, we haven't gotten into the thing that makes PlayStation look very bad here, which we'll get into in just a second. Right. But I do think that the conversation has largely been, but you have exclusives. And their point is not that there aren't, that Xbox, because they've never had a problem with Halo, right?
Right.
Because Microsoft developed Halo, made it their own, and that was their franchise that they brought out. This is Microsoft going, okay, well, we haven't made a game that sold as well as anything that Sony has made, so we need to buy the competition to get ahead,
right?
And then eventually make those exclusive so there's not a choice on where to go.
What's the word I'm looking for? But like in a vacuum, two exclusive games, what I'm trying to say is in a vacuum, two exclusive games is not going to take PlayStation, and PlayStation shouldn't point the finger at two exclusive games. Now, like I said, it's not in a vacuum because they just bought the studio. We've said this over and over and over again.
They're trying to establish a pattern here.
Yeah.
And we talked about that too.
To me, it is hard to be, for those defending Microsoft, which I haven't met anybody. I haven't met really anybody that's done that, but in my real life, but I just like, nobody's coming up to me in the street and being like, have you heard of what Microsoft's doing with that?
Have you heard about our Lord and Savior, Phil Spencer?
No, so I think it's tough to be like, we just have God of War now, and then be mad that they also now have Starfield.
It's in a vacuum. I can see that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to point fingers there, but we do know that this is like we're just slowly turning the knob. This is a pattern
well established with Microsoft on how they handle their business, and I think that this is maybe.
We didn't buy we didn't buy the major league team. We just bought all three of the minor league teams that are under that major league team.
It's like whenever they tell one of the.
So are you going to buy the major league team? We're not saying that.
Yeah, it's like that corporation that owns all the glasses places.
Oh, right, or the mattresses.
And then when they were told that they couldn't buy any more, glasses makers or mattress makers, they started buying the stores that ship out the mattresses. So they still get paid. Mm-hmm. This is that, but for games. Yeah. At least from my point of view. Now, I will say that I didn't know until today about how sweet the deal offered to PlayStation was. So, according to parties involved, I'll show the tweet right here. But during behind closed doors conversations, which are sealed, we don't know anything about what was said behind closed doors. This is part of an off the records conversation or an on the records conversation. They offered an incredible deal to Sony that allowed for Call of Duty to potentially come to Game Pass and PlayStation Plus on the same day and date. that guaranteed PlayStation full access to a complete version of Call of Duty, exactly the same on par as the one on Xbox for the next 10 years. All content released the same, yada, yada, yada. You know, they've been very generous with this deal that is imaginary right now. Which I can't state enough.
Right.
They're bargaining with chips
there.
they haven't actually purchased yet. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. I just think it's really weird whenever companies are like, yeah, I mean, we started signing deals immediately for this thing we haven't been told we're allowed to have yet. And it's
Right.
like, are you allowed to do that? Can you bargain with, that's like,
What do you think the stock market is?
I mean, yeah, that's fair. You know what, fair. Truth.
I mean, we just had 2 banks collapse this week.
Don't get me started. This is not the show for
Are we
that.
allowed to make deals with other people's money?
Fair enough.
Are we?
You know what? You're making me look real dumb, Royden.
I don't know.
It's still weird. It doesn't stop being weird just 'cause
No, the
it's common.
backroom deals with these media corporations are weird because then like when you're not allowed to do it and it falls through, all of a sudden you have a bunch.
Yeah.
The only people it really affects are the fans who are like, well, what happened? And,
Yeah, well, and then the companies whose investors may have, you know, swung upwards on the idea of a thing that's not going to happen now, and then it plummets a stock for someone or whatever.
Right.
So I could see that happening to Nintendo with this Call of Duty thing. Their stock shot up a little bit whenever the announcement was made. Again, I don't know how that's going to work out, but I will say, Jim Ryan apparently on the outside, you know, they rejected this deal, and his quote, the one that makes him look real bad, and in case you're wondering, this is Jim Ryan. He's the CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment for America.
Jim Sony.
Got him? Captain Sony himself, Mr. Sony Man. We can call him Sonny. He said, I don't want a new Call of Duty deal. I just want to block your merger. Which
it's not a great look, but at least it's honest.
that is honest. And look, we all kind of knew that's what was happening here. This was not ever about Call of Duty, really. This was about the fact that Activision Blizzard is such a massive part of gaming that they own so many broad spectrum IPs that this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Beyond just Call of Duty, this is Overwatch, this is World of Warcraft, this is the potential to bring franchises like Diablo and stuff off of PlayStation, stuff that PlayStation fought to get onto console in the first place back during the PS3 days. Like, this is a big deal. And I can see, you know, a lot of people will be like, see, Sony's afraid. And I'd be like, well, yeah, you'd be afraid if your neighbor was like, I've bought all the land that your house is on. You're like,
wait,
what's happening? They're like, don't worry.
We're
For
not
10
taking your
years,
house.
I'm not taking your house for the next 10 years. You're like, but what about after the 10 years? You're like, oh, come on, 10 years is a good deal. What do you mean?
You'll forget about this in 10 years.
Yeah, it's like,
What?
It's just this weird kind of like, they're like, 10 years is a great deal. And it's like, that's not the point, though.
Look, we're not taking your car, but we just took all of your tires.
So and I'm willing to let you have your tires. They're my tires. Yeah. I don't know. That's not what's
You can
happening,
buy
but
them back.
It's
Duh. Like, it's not like.
It's not
He said the
surprising.
quiet part out loud, so I don't know.
Which honestly, I appreciate any company that's just going to be like, yeah, I don't want them to have that though.
Yeah.
Because like, I hate.
We all know that.
I mean, I hate the bureaucratic nonsense where they're like, we are working together to form a better. No, you're not. Your competitors trying to destroy each other, and you're
capitalism
doing
is,
it
baby.
in the most civil way possible out loud.
Yeah.
But behind closed doors, you're like, find their families and slit their throats. Like it's that serious behind the closed doors. And Phil Spencer's probably a good guy, and Jim Ryan is probably a good guy. Actually, I don't even want to say that.
We don't know
because
that.
We don't know that. And if
I'm not trusting Mega Millionaires.
if history's showing us anything, no one's a good guy.
To be awesome. Like, I'm not trusting them to be completely magnanimous
Yeah.
and like virtuous. No thanks.
They're guys, okay? We know that they're out there, and that's the most we know. But
They are people that exist on this planet.
And so, you know, I want to believe that this is just, for one thing, the person who tweeted this is connected with Microsoft. So it's like, I mean, so what did Phil Spencer say after that? Was he's like, well, all we're trying to do is destroy you. Did you cut that part out, or are we just going to only talk about what he said? I don't know. It doesn't matter, though. This is bad optics for Sony.
Probably some truth to it.
I mean, Jim Ryan has not denied it.
Yeah.
And Sony has made a statement where they were like, well, those conversations were behind closed doors, and then
So
this person was like, but that part wasn't. That was after the meeting, and they were like, oh, well, fair enough. And I'm like, oh, so he did say that. That's fine. But
you can't say the thing, but
I
I'm
can't
not mad
stress
at you for
enough
saying
that
the
I'm
thing.
still not on board with this Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger. I do think that there has to be a better way. If that means that Activision gets split up from Blizzard, and all the solutions offered by the CMA were fairly decent solutions, divesting parts of the company outward. But I don't think that ultimately these deals are going to push anyone over the edge. If anything, it's making the UK more on edge over this deal, because they're like, okay, but that's not addressing any of the problems that we brought up. And if any, now we've got more questions, because the FTC also requested, I didn't send you this part, I guess I forgot to put the article in, but the FTC also requested to get a full list of papers and documents regarding this new redacted code name next generation gaming ecosystem that Microsoft has proposed, which we don't know. I don't think that pertains to a system. I think that pertains to cloud-based stuff, and I think that's going to involve eventually becoming either the only real name in cloud gaming across all platforms, which could. So there's two sides to
Microsoft
this.
Cloud Gaming run off of Amazon Web Services.
Pretty much. Well, except for Microsoft's web services or Azure web services are super robust. They sell to everyone. Sony uses them. That's how robust they are. So, but my point is that there's two ways that this can go. Either Sony's right, and Microsoft buys this, and they get this approved eventually, and in 10 years' time, Call of Duty, or slowly but surely all the franchises that they can get away with making exclusive will be exclusive. I think that's a bad idea. They don't have the market power across the planet. Sony is an 80% market share according to, for the global mind share, not in terms of sales, but they have a lot more presence. And I think that Microsoft knows that. So the better deal is to acquire Call of Duty and all the Activision Blizzard titles and say, okay, after 10 years, physically, you will no longer be able to get a Call of Duty game on your platform. However, you may pay us a yearly fee to keep Call of Duty games on the streaming service that you use Microsoft Azure for. And so then they make money off their competitor that way instead. Meanwhile, they're still selling physical Xbox exclusive copies for the Xbox and digital Xbox exclusive copies. So it's like offering it up through a different method, but that still changes and takes the power away from the consumer and the competitors. And that's, I think, part of what the CMA's concern is that this isn't a long con to get exclusive games. This is a long con to control where those games can end up in the first place.
Right. Let's move on.
Yeah, we have to. Obviously, we'll keep up with that story as it unfolds. Lots more detail to come. It's going to be a long process, so make sure to subscribe. And
it's going to go on for years, man.
Hit the man in a hat bell.
I don't know when they were going to reach a resolution on that. Could be 10 years from now.
Oh, yeah. When all these deals are over, and then we'll have to re-sign them.
What did you want to? Did you want to talk about Budokai, or did you want to talk about the
Budokai 4?
Or did you want to talk about Hitman?
I got to talk about Budokai 4, guys.
Okay.
Holy language.
Bad word.
Holy. Put the word here. Don't put the word here. Censor that.
Shirts and pants.
Yeah. Holy shirts and pants, Batman. I can't believe we're getting a new Budokai game after 17 years. For those of you that don't know, shame on you. And for those of you who do know, I see you. But 17 years ago, we got the last Budokai Tenkaichi game. An incredible set of Dragon Ball Z fighting games that I grew up on. Probably some of the first Dragon Ball games I really got into with my brother.
Yeah.
At the height of when Dragon Ball Z was big in America.
I remember when times were good.
I don't want to think about it for too long. It hurts too much. But they're going to be good again because we're getting Tenkaichi 4. Holy crap, I'm so excited. We just got a little bit of a teaser, but it was just enough of a nostalgia bait. And look, I know it. Look, guys, I know. They're getting me. They got me. I'm stuck in. They found my weak spot. They said, what haven't we exploited of this man's nostalgia?
They gave you the dopamine drip.
It's in there. And they got me. But I don't care. If it's anywhere near as good as the last Budokai Tenkaichi game,
Yes.
Kim, edit that out. I swear to God. If you don't. Budokai Tenkaichi game, I'll be happy. I'll be ecstatic because those games are great. And look, Xenoverse 2 has been going on since 2017, and they are still releasing content for it. And it is, and I'm sorry if you like that, it's a bad game, and I don't like it, but I played 90 hours of it. But I hate it. It's a bad game.
That's on you, brother. That's not a not a them thing.
Christian platinum it, and he's like, it's the worst game I've ever played. I'm like, why did you platinum it?
That's not a them thing.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know. But it's also like, they do real slow drip on the Dragon Ball Z side of games. So it's like, it's all I had for a long time. And then Kakarot came out, and that was good, but it was kind of short, relatively speaking.
The last Budokai game that I think I told you this was like 2.
My favorite, honestly.
I think was 2 because
2 or Budokai Tenkaichi 2? Which system were you playing on?
that would have been on a PlayStation 2.
Okay, so that's probably Budokai 2.
Yeah. So
I think
that was fun. I was a huge Dragon Ball Z nerd growing up. Put it down and hadn't been back to the book. I read a few of the Dragon Ball books.
Books.
I know the manga, if you will.
Uncultured.
I know the books. I read some of the manga. You read it backwards. When you read it backwards.
Did you know manga's written backwards?
Yeah. And I was a huge fan of the show. So my friend had that game, and we spent. Go outside and play with your friend. No, I gotta play as Majin Buu.
Well, and even if I am outside, well, we're all just you're gonna be like, can you guys stop screaming out there?
Ah!
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll tell you this: as a father of 2, I have taught both my kids to Kamehameha on command. If I go, Ka, they're right there with me. They're ready. They're ready to go. We got the whole family. We're gonna blow a hole in the wall.
Millennial dad.
Yeah, it's the first thing. You teach your kids 2 things. You teach them to high five and you teach them to Kamehameha. And then you're done. That's it. Mom's got the rest. That's all you had to do as a dad.
No, so that was the last one that I played. I didn't get to Kakarot, and I really wanted to.
It's coming to PlayStation Plus at the end of March.
So that might be it. But
tons of great games coming to PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
Unrelated, but kind of related. Kakarot's on there.
So that might be it. I've been looking for a fighting game to that I actually enjoy. As if you've watched this show, not a fighting game guy, just not.
We'll have to do a Weekend Warriors.
Yeah.
With this is a must for Weekend Warriors.
So unless it's Smash Bros, I'm just not a platform fighting guy. I'm just not.
It's going to stick to the same style. They said they're going to try to capture the lightning in the bottle that was that franchise. And it's really one of the few arena fighter style games that work super well. And part of that is just the iconic, stuff. But I think that they really had nailed down that formula by that last game. So I'm excited. I'm also very excited to hear more details on the upcoming James Bond game from IO Interactive.
Yes.
But unfortunately, before we hear about anything from that, we did have to hear about the fact that they will be shelving Hitman for the time being. Now, what I don't want from this game, even though it would probably be a fine game if they did this, is I don't
make it
want
a Hitman?
A Hitman James Bond game. Because while Hitman's espionage style, contract killer thing is cool, he's not a spy, he's an assassin. James Bond is a spy. I want to see spy stuff. I don't want bad force stealth. We haven't had a legitimately good stealth shooter game in years.
Splinter Cell?
Splinter Cell was probably the last one I could think of, or Metal Gear Solid 5 if you want to count that.
Yeah.
But
was the last Splinter Cell 2013?
Yeah, Blacklist.
Yeah.
Which was fine. I liked it. I just want that. I want something that isn't just Hitman.
I want a Sly Cooper.
Dude. Yes, give me. Make James Bond an animal. and
this is James Bond. He's a raccoon.
I could watch it.
No,
honestly.
I agree.
Trash can, shake it, not
the problem. Good joke. Trash cans shaken, not stirred. I think the problem, like, if you try to make it more like the movies are bombastic and all up in, like, he's the most overt spy I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
He's just blowing stuff
He's
up,
just
like,
constantly giving
causing
what way he's
panic and
covered.
mayhem in foreign countries. I think, yeah, you could go somewhere between a Splinter Cell and a Uncharted game.
Yeah.
If you can find a middle ground there.
It's gotta not be Call of Duty, which is what they've done with the last 2 James Bond attempts. They just did a bad Call of Duty game. Mm-hmm. It needs to not
first-person shooter.
Yeah, it needs to not try to be GoldenEye. You can't do it. I'm sorry, you won't win that fight. That's a nostalgia. That is like trying to make Half-Life 3 at this point. It's not. That's a bad plan. Don't do it. I mean, make Half-Life 3. I want to see.
Right.
I want to see what happens.
Do it.
But don't do it.
Portal as well.
Portal still has a chance. You still like there's a solid chance you can make a solid enough game there. But yeah, it can't be Call of Duty. It needs to be just enough action set piece, but also kind of. I think they should try to ground it a little bit in a little bit of.
You need the espionage. You need the espionage because he is a spy. But like, what those movies have always been is him just causing panic and mayhem. Even the Sean Connery ones, which were much more dumbed down, not dumbed down, but like less than these newer movies are. Yeah. He was just messing things up.
I just want them to cast someone who does a really solid Sean Connery impression as James Bond.
You can find him out there, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
At the sacrifice of Hitman, a lot of people love those games.
I think if it's a good James Bond game and it's worth it, I think
people won't care. Yeah.
But if it's not, then people will be like, I can't believe we lost Hitman for this.
Right. Which the last Hitman was fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's good. You know what's probably not going to be fine? Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League.
Considering they killed it for another year?
Maybe. Yeah, so after the PlayStation Direct a couple weeks ago, we got our first look at gameplay. Unfortunately, this game has been in development since 2017, so it's leaning a lot on trends from that time period, such as games as a service, as a live service model. And it's also using a lot of gear and RPG stats and that kind of stuff. All that stuff that really bogged down the Avengers game and makes games like Division and Ghost Recon problematic for a lot of players. Yeah, so it's that kind of stuff. I think the gameplay looked fun, but I also think it probably looks a little too bullet spongy. It's 2-player co-op instead of 4-player co-op like we originally thought. I think that there was a mix-up at some point in the process because they gave the single-player game to the company that had previously made a multiplayer title, and then they gave the multiplayer title to the award-winning single-player game people. And I'm like, why did you cross those wires? Why did Gotham Knights, which should have been the perfect follow-up to Arkham Knight, it shares a similar name but is somehow not set in that universe? Mm-hmm. Why would you separate those things? And then why would you make Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? First off, are you telling me the Justice League existed this whole time and they didn't come help Batman ever?
No, they were messed up, man.
This has to have been
That's the whole thing. Kill the Justice League.
And also, Batman's in this game, which means Batman didn't die.
R.I.P. Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, I mean, well, Batman did die.
Yeah. Rest in peace to a legend. But
Which they didn't include at the Oscars.
There was a weird thing about that. Like maybe it was because he was mostly known. They had a lot of people in memoriam, like a huge amount of
but
people.
But
pass away.
still, he was a legend.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
this is one of those things where it's like, oh, is voice acting not acting?
No, I think it may have been because he was mostly known for like quote unquote TV films or like so. Like I don't know.
But he did lots of voice work across.
Yeah, he would have been. I guess he would have been in the Academy. That was another thing too. They had
previously was in stuff.
They had another. They had a woman pass away that was in one of the films nominated for Best Picture.
Sadness, right?
Yeah, in Triangle of Sadness. They didn't show her.
Also, tell me the movie's called Triangle of Sadness. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's like, what happened? Anyway, we're going on a different rant.
Yeah.
Kill the Justice League.
Kill the Justice League.
Kill the Justice League.
I don't know. So according to Jason Schreier, this game may have already been delayed in the first place by 6 months for polish. That's not going to be enough time to remove the systems and stuff that people have been complaining about. So we'll see. But according to Jeff Grubb, another prominent games journalist and media person who is right like 90% of the time, he says that it's actually been delayed to 2024. So that could be long enough to make some massive changes, but I don't know that there's a way to salvage this game if it's bad. So here's the thing, though. People may be having knee-jerk reactions to the surface level of this game's mechanics without ever getting hands-on with it. Maybe the game feels amazing. Maybe the story is incredible. So the mechanics are just a necessary evil to get through that. I don't know. But at this point, it's going to be a while.
Adding those RPG elements is annoying.
Please.
That's all I took away
putting
from
stat numbers on superhero stuff. I don't want to play a superhero game that limits my power fantasy. Do you know what a superhero is?
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole point, is to feel superpowered. Even when I'm fighting other superpowered beings, I should feel superpowered, and you're not even always fighting
Like, if you're going
beings.
to do it like the Spider-Man games did it, where it's like you unlock different powers, not like power scaling.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll see where the Suicide Squad ends up. They are out of the May area, sounds like, which is good because that is also when, around the same time, that Breath of the Wild 2, Final Fantasy 16, Diablo 4, and Street Fighter 6 are all launching in that same time period. Not a great place to be if you're a game that people are unsure about buying. So definitely kick it to the end of the year when you're closer to Starfield.
Again, that's also for sure going to be good, right?
Super, but it won't matter because it's Bethesda, so it doesn't matter. They get a pass, apparently, unless it's online. But yeah, so moving on to our next story, next discussion.
Yes.
I know, it's been...
We know words.
I know exactly where I'm at in this not script. The Last of Us Season 1 is done.
Yep.
And it is as good as I thought it would be the whole time through. There's not a bad episode in the bunch. There's not a bad performance in the bunch. And I still cried at things I've seen before.
Yeah.
There were a couple things where I was like, I kind of wish we'd gotten more time with that. But I also know your brain does this thing if you've played the game where you're like, this was a lot longer.
Yeah.
But then if you think about it, if you cut out the parts where you're crouch walking everywhere for 4 hours, it's really not.
Throwing bottles and cans.
Yeah,
and
it's like 2 hours of story for that section that you're thinking about, and you're like, but I was 7 hours that I was there. And it's
yeah,
like,
I trauma bonded with
I was really
Henry and Sam.
I had survivor's guilt from that part. So, yeah, it's it's kind of a weird thing if you have played the game that you kind of get stuck in this. But what are your feelings about the finale and about the overall season?
Overall season it's the best video game to screen adaptation that we've ever had. I mean, the bar was low, but like even still, I think regardless if it was adapted from a video game or not, I think it would have gotten. I think it gets extra points. I mean, is that fair or not? It does get extra points because it was adapted from a video game. So all of a sudden we're like, oh, this is actually good. Like this happened. I think just as an HBO show goes, I think it's primetime Sunday night viewing. It goes pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's on the level of something like the middle season of Game of Thrones as far as like the totality of it, or
I think it was maybe too short of a season for it to outplay some of those kinds of things.
Something like Chernobyl that Craig Mazin made, or even everybody loves Succession. I'm not there yet, but like everybody is saying Succession is like
Succession's good.
The next Sopranos or whatever. But as far as HBO primetime viewing goes, it holds water. So my main problem with it, and this is the main concern that I heard from a lot of people who hadn't played the game, is like where it was somehow rushed and meandering at the same time, which is a weird thing to like kind of wrap your brain around, because to me it was like the story in and of itself is a little meandering, because when you're playing the game, like you said, you get to interact and do all these things.
You're spending a lot of time just climbing stuff.
Yeah, and the whole serialized nature of a video game is such that you jump from one place to the next.
Yeah.
So when you do that in a when you basically fast travel in a series, you're like, oh, we're here now. It's kind of like Whiplash, but then again, you're just kind of seeing Ellie and Joel, who are great, or giving great performances
excellent on both
by
sides.
Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. You kind of see them just talking to each other for large portions of it.
Yeah.
And when they go and they are in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, a lot of that episode there isn't any act. It's just we're just talking. It's
the
character
emotional
development.
crux of their relationship, and not.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what made a lot of this series stick with people, is that unlike The Walking Dead or whatever that felt the need to
throw a
shove
zombie,
a
horde
zombie in every time that there was conflict building, they're like, now the real villain is the people. Just kidding, it's a horde of zombies too. And it's like, but the tension was already high. You didn't need to.
but
Now it's just gotten goofy.
On top of that, you mentioned that, like the real enemy is the people. This kind of even pivoted from that as like the real enemy is what you're battling inside of yourself.
Yeah.
Which is like really
Your demons are the actual demons here.
Yeah, exactly. So would I have liked to have that metaphor not be as literal and have more interactions with raiders and things like that? Yeah, absolutely. Was it absolutely necessary? No. I do think that there was room to have a few more of those set pieces where they're like, or even it felt like we expanded a lot at the very beginning of lore.
Yeah,
especially with the Bill and Frank
narrowed as we were
episode,
going through.
and then it really started to follow the same path as the game as we got, and it's like we got to get to Salt Lake City all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, and there was a lot of stuff there that was like, okay, I understand that this part, like, I get that they kind of included Kathleen and stuff as a mix up on basically all the different factions and stuff that you run across throughout the game that aren't zombie.
Yeah.
And that aren't Fedra.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of freedom fighters who've lost the sight of freedom,
Right, they're now following a demigod. Like Craig Mazin has some ideas about what he thinks America looks like currently, and those definitely made their way into this season. And
actually, there's no politics in video games.
Right, just for sure. And I don't know. I think that mostly worked, and so expanding some of that lore and expanding some of those episodes to 2 episodes arcs, like. To me, it worked with the Henry and Sam thing, but then you get to the emotional crux with the David episode, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, we could have spent more time with that.
I needed 2 episodes because the whole point of like their conversation at the beginning of that interaction in the game is a lot longer, and then she learns to trust him when they get attacked and forced to defend each other, and they fight side by side just like she's been fighting with Joel, which leads to more conflict in her. That doesn't happen here.
Yeah, that is the one time.
She never had a reason to trust him ever. He never gave her a legitimate reason for her to have a conflict in her heart about whether or not he's actually maybe secretly a good person. And then that would have made the reveal of what they're doing in that town way more impactful. And then his switch in character from,
like, you knew from the very beginning he was terrible.
Also, no offense to the guy that played him in the show, but the dude who voiced him in the game,
it was way more menacing to me.
It wasn't even menacing. He had that cult leader kind of like that. You're like, there's something off about this guy, but I can't decide. He's like, hey, listen, I'm just trying to be your friend.
Yeah.
He had a Mr. Rogers voice that tricked you into being like, are you, what's happening here? I don't like this, but what's happened?
Right.
I don't want to trust you, but you're also, like your worldview is different than mine. I don't like it, but it's like, you're just also trying to survive out here. And the second he starts talking, you're like, it's a bad man right there. Right. I don't like that.
No, I'm not saying that the show is in any way bad. I do think what would have taken it from a 9 to a 10 in my book is if you gave some of these latter episodes a little bit more time to breathe, so you felt the weight of the people that are dying. And in the game, you do spend a little bit more time, like you said, crawling around, and so like you kind of feel like when that release happens when you kill David in the game. I didn't quite get that here.
No, there was no
as much as I did even in the earlier episodes when Joel's daughter dies, or when Henry and Sam died, or when it just the latter deaths in the game felt a little rushed. And so I kind of sympathize with the people that are like, well, where are we going with all of this? And also, if you didn't know the story and then all of a sudden it's like, so what happened? They just don't have a cure now.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people have given time to like process what the ending actually means.
To be fair, that's how we all felt.
Yeah.
In 2013, when this game first released, and we got to the ending, and we're like,
What?
no. After all of that?
Nothing happened? Yeah.
Which, okay, so we've already kind of thrown some spoilers out there, but
Yeah,
we're going to put
I
a
mean-
big spoiler here for the big spoiler warning, because I'm going to talk about the ending a little bit here, because I think it's funny that we get to talk about this a little bit. So Joel did the thing that he did. I do like that he was a lot more just like, this is what I have to do, and his face the whole time was just, I don't care anymore. Everyone dies. I'm getting Ellie back.
Yeah.
But also, pretty sure Joel was just straight up right this time. Not like, morally not right to have murdered everyone, but also, that's not how cures work.
Just gonna cut our brain out without doing any tests.
If it's chemical, you could just extract the chemical from it.
Yeah.
Why do you need to cut it out? They're like, oh, we got to study it in their brain.
There's a lot of funny videos going around TikTok right now that are just like, nah, those dudes were just like med students that didn't get to graduate.
Exactly. I'm like, I know the backstory of the dad or of the doctor now because of part 2, but it's like, if you don't know that, this guy just seems like he's just I'm
gonna cut into a brain.
I will cut this child up, and then we'll see what happens. Probably got to get a cure out of it. You know what I'm saying?
They've never found a cure for a fungal infection ever.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it doesn't make sense.
like in real life, they've never done it.
And
So-
if it's a chemical thing, then that should be something that can either A, be synthesized or be extracted. And that's kind of it's weird because the spore stuff was a little different in the game. It kind of made more sense that they had to cut that out because the cordyceps was wrapped around her brain, and it was the only way that they could get to the cordyceps to see what was different about it and stuff. And then from that, they were going to be able to extrapolate what kind of signals or whatever were being sent and stuff. That was slightly different. They made this chemical in nature, and they took out the spore stuff. So I'm just like,
Well, they did say the tendrils manifest itself in the brain.
Well,
or
yeah,
whatever.
but they also said that it was a chemical process. So if it's chemical, you can locate where those chemicals are coming from.
No, I did like the expansion of some of the ideas of like how Ellie became immune.
Yeah.
Ashley Johnson played her mother, which was a really cool
Yeah.
Easter egg.
Which we didn't get in the game, and I love that. And
Yeah.
they apparently have plans about how they're going to reveal who Ellie's dad is later on. Which I'm like,
Do you need to?
it's like the Star Wars thing where they're like, hey, soon we'll have a background story on what Uncle Owen was up to. And I'm like, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Also, though, because like,
I don't give a shit about Uncle Owen.
it's like, what if her dad was this guy? I'm like, do we know him? No, it's a
care?
new character. Then I don't care. He has no bearing on anything. He's gone.
No, I don't know. I think this is a 9 out of a 10. I think I was deeply affected by episodes earlier in the season. It felt rushed at the end of the season because it was like, oh no, we got to get to where we're going. A 45-minute finale is tough no matter which way you slice it.
Should have been a lot longer.
Especially when you spend, and I love the episode 3, but you gave episode 3 like a feature-length film.
Yeah, episode 3 and episode, was it 5?
Yeah.
Were plenty long. And I think, and episode 2 was also I think a little bit longer than episode 1 was. But I think that the pacing towards the end definitely suffered. I would have liked to have spent 2 episodes on the David stuff and 2 episodes on Ellie and Joel's interactions following the David stuff. I think that they're
Yeah, that wasn't
making
explored in the
their way-
game either.
It was a little bit though. When they're in the sewers together and
right.
stuff, and he kind of like keeps trying to peck at her and stuff, and she's still having to fight and stuff, but she keeps losing focus, and so Joel keeps having to save her and stuff. You keep having to run up and save her. Like there's a lot of that kind of stuff, and then there's a part that always stuck with me from that part of the game, where Joel is like, "How do we get past this?" It's the part where he finds the ladder in this in the show, but it's a different. It's like a library or a cafe
Yeah.
or whatever. And Ellie just goes and sits down, and she's staring, and a butterfly flies in front of her, and her eyes don't move, and she's just kind of like lost. And you see this look on her face, and then Joel's like, Ellie, and she's like, huh?
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of that here, but that part of that performance in that game stuck so much more because you have been trying to get. Joel spends the entire way through these sewers like, hey, I'm taking care of you. I got you, baby girl. Don't worry about this. I'm gonna get us there. You're not gonna get hurt. And after this is over, we're gonna do whatever you want to do, and we don't even have to do this if you want. Like he's just trying to cheer her up and get her back because he doesn't know.
They do a little bit of that.
Which they do a very small amount, but they basically condense the conversation that happens over the course of a few hours and try to get it into like the first 15 minutes of that episode.
Yeah.
And it drastically, it just makes Joel seem more desperate and less like he's trying to slowly, help her. Like he opens up really quickly, which is fine. I get it for the story and the pacing and stuff for that last episode.
It was a really big character switch.
Yeah.
Like she takes care. Like they start to bond a little bit in that episode, going to the school in Colorado.
Yeah.
Actually, they start to bond a lot, and then she takes care of him. So obviously, like he's indebted to her. But when it starts the first 15 minutes of the last episode, you're all of a sudden he's just a completely different guy than he's been for the past 20 years since his daughter died, and so that's fine. But it just felt a little rushed. That's my only complaint, is that the very final episode felt a little rushed, and it felt like Mason and them were kind of like they didn't know if they were going to get a second season.
Well, I think
I don't know.
They should have known.
They should have known, but like when they were making it, I don't know if because they spent a ton of money on it.
A lot of money per episode.
Yeah. So like it almost was like, oh, we got to wrap this up.
I'm sure that they got to the end of the series and Warner Bros was like, there's a lot going on upstairs. I need you to wrap this up under budget, okay?
Yeah.
This last episode needs to be under budget, okay? I'm sure it was partly time constraint and budget and stuff because this was, I think, originally planned to release closer to the launch of the part 1.
Right. I don't know. Best video game adaptation bar none.
For sure, yeah.
It's not even close.
What do we want out of the next one, season 2?
They have already said, Mason and Druckmann have already said they haven't started writing it, but we have general ideas.
I just don't want a whole bunch of Joel flashbacks. I was talking with my buddy Christian about it, and we were like, part of the reason why what happens in part 2 hits so much harder. We're not going to spoil it because you probably already had it spoiled. Stay off of TikTok, kids. But part of the reason all the stuff that happens is because Joel and Ellie's time together is a lot less, parsed. Like it's not. They don't get to see each other as much throughout the beginning of the games as you would hope for.
Well, and there's a pulling away when she gets older.
And so I don't want them to spend a lot, because all that Ellie remembering stuff later in the game and working through her emotions about a lot of things with different people, that's fine.
They're either going to do the exact same thing or go in a completely different direction, and I don't know how fans are going to react to either way.
The smart thing to do would do season 2 be Ellie's side of the story, and season 3 be Abby. That's what I would do. And then I would also just fucking censor that. I would just absolutely cut down the back chapter of part 2, the California stuff. Parse that crap down a lot. That is the most. We're gonna go back for revenge a third time. This time it's personal.
And
I'm not saying that they shouldn't end the game the same way. I think that they should end the show the same way the game ended. I think that people really misinterpreted that ending initially, and I think that seeing it in a filmic version will make it more, people understand it better. There's a lot more, and then we'll get the podcast and all that stuff afterwards, so people will be like,
I have like that. I have like them explaining their ideas.
Yeah. Troy Baker is a great podcast host.
No, I kind of always wanted if they were going to make a third game, always wanted them to go backwards and to do the 20 years between Texas and Boston.
I want to see.
That's not going to happen in the show.
I want to see Joel and Tommy doing the stuff they had to do.
Yeah, like
I want to know
that's
what the
dark.
nitty gritty stuff that we didn't get to see is.
So when they're
Or
just
even
like
when
mercenaries
Joel
and
Tess
murderers.
first hooked up, I'd like to see.
Yeah,
that, 'cause it
I
sounded
think-
like they'd been together for a while.
I always wanted them to try and do that. I don't think we'll ever see that. I think Druckmann is obsessed with the character of Ellie. So, I mean, obviously, but like if you know the second game, but like. Just do the second game. Maybe you can give it a little bit of a precursor because of how young that, and who knows, they could make this season 4 years down the line.
Dude,
but
yeah,
like,
I was gonna say, let's wait 5 years and make part 2.
yeah, like maybe you could do the 4 years that they're in Jackson.
Yeah.
Before, but what is that story? I don't know.
Or you could even set the first few episodes a year before the start of. So that we get an idea of the stuff that happens that leads up. Because there's a lot of that stuff that happens right before the beginning of the game that we hear about, but we don't ever see. And I would like to see some of that, but without going back and overstaying its welcome in that section.
Whatever happens, if they keep Abby in it, they may completely just change that whole thing. I don't think they will. I think a lot of the thing that people complained about this, the complaints that I heard from friends were that the deaths didn't mean anything to them because it was so serialized, because it was like we didn't spend enough time with these characters. Okay, well, we're just moving on to the next.
That's what
death.
I'm saying. I think
like,
season 2 should just be Ellie's side.
So if a huge death like happens in like the first few episodes of the next season, it's gonna either turn a lot of people or bring a lot of people in. But I don't know if you like, when you have as bankable of a star as Pedro Pascal, if you just throw him to the wayside.
Well, I don't think you would throw him to the wayside because he does appear.
Yeah, but it would be
throughout the back half of the game.
It's a tough look though when you have the Mandalorian.
But you have to do what you got to do to tell that story.
Yeah.
And I think that they should not drastically, because they will lose the fan base that
wasn't weird online.
Well, yeah, the people who are here to support The Last of Us no matter what, which is most of the people that are watching to start with, those people are the same people who go and tell their non-gamer friends, you should watch this. And while some of those non-gamer friends may not be hooked on The Last of Us, not know about the stuff from The Last of Us Part 2, there's also been a massive increase in people who played Part 1 and subsequently will lead to an increase in people who play Part 2.
You know what's going to happen regardless is that whoever it's like asking somebody to go and play Abby is like, it's a tough beat.
I think we moved past that a little bit though.
People love Pedro Pascal, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
We'll just cast him as Abby.
It's going to be a bloodbath on Twitter if like.
Oh, dude, you have to cast someone who is so unlikable. Who can turn a switch, like I'm trying to think of a good example. Someone who goes from likable to unlikable in an instant, and just has that, like, you have to have that charisma to go from, and not even like in an instant, because obviously you get endeared to Abby over the course of her 3 days, but I think that a big part of that role is making it so that person is human the entire time through. They're not an evil caricature seeking to do bad things. They're a person suffering in the same exact way that Joel and Ellie have both suffered in the past. And then you see that transfers onto Ellie, and then that consumes Ellie, and we get to see those relations like that. I think that if they do 11 episodes or 10 episodes or whatever for season 2, that's a mistake. I think it needs to be more episodes this time. Not too long. I don't think you want to go like 28 episodes or something.
No, you don't want to do The Walking Dead.
But you want to do maybe closer to like 15 episodes. Give yourself a little more breathing room.
Give yourself a runway.
Yeah, because you need that. I think that honestly, the big impact from that opening hours, the big death, that's got to happen within the first 3 episodes, or people are going to get bored.
Yeah,
I do think that establishing the rules, though, or the roles of where everyone is in this new dichotomy that all the characters are in, is going to be important. So I think first episode is establishing what life is like in Jackson. Second episode starts to establish the conflict that has risen between Joel and Ellie. And then third episode is focused entirely on how Joel's day-to-day with Tommy leads him to where it does.
Also, Druckmann and Mason have already said that the violence in action is going to be bumped up in this next season.
Hell yeah.
So
Let's kill
for
some
those
more
of you
people.
complaining about clickers, which I was a little bit towards the end there, I was like, can we get one more? Maybe,
Yeah,
like,
dude, not enough. There was definitely not enough.
I mean, they had that horde
Infected.
scene that one time, but
Yeah,
like,
but that was cool. But then also, I'm sure that was a very costly scene.
exactly.
There's a lot of prosthetics.
That cost
a lot of
a few
VFX.
$1 million. That's it. That's
Yeah.
all my thoughts.
Hope God of War is good. Hope Fallout is good. Hope BioShock is good. All those things are currently in development, and if any of them are anywhere close to as good as this, great. But you now have to go up against this, so good luck.
Yeah, this is gonna win Emmys, folks. Like, I don't know.
This is going to be a rough
I don't
one
know what
for
to tell you.
Amazon's doing God of War, so I have a little more hope for that than I do for BioShock or
BioShock on
well,
Netflix.
Fallout's also Amazon, I think. So
BioShock on Netflix might be stinky. But we don't know.
everything from Netflix is mostly stinky. Sorry,
Wrap it
Netflix. Not big on you. All right, that's all we got this week. Yeah, we'll give it a 9 out of 10 on The Last of Us. If you want, I'm going to link Royden's written review that he did over on what's it?
ApolloHOU.com.
HOU. Sorry, I'm bad with names.
No, it's fine.
But we'll put that link down there for you to go read. It's an excellent review. This guy can really write. He doesn't even know it.
long.
It is long, but it's worth the read, I promise. We'll be back with reviews from us soon. I'll have a Destiny Lightfall review here soon. We're going to be trying to get content back going. I know it's been a couple weeks, and again, I'm sorry for our hiatus, but I was sick, and so was everyone else I know. It was a rough few weeks. Happy to be back. Be sure to like this video if you like the stuff that we do. Subscribe to the channel if you want to catch more stuff. And until next time, I've been Andrew. That's Royden, and we out of here. Woo!
It's hot in here.